You're about to listen to part 2 of a two-part series featuring phenomenal Black women in leadership roles. You'll hear the voice of our host, Romeo Effs, as he engaged 3 Black women, Rasheen Roper Robinson, Nneka Orji, and Precious Lwanga, who happened to double as co-hosts on their thoughts and experiences as Black women leaders in the spaces that they occupy. It is as fruitful as it is insightful. This episode was done in observation and celebration of Black History Month in October for the UK.
We spoke about, the double jeopardy of Black women, but I think that Black women have a triple jeopardy, right?
Oh,
You're
God.
Black, you're a woman, but then there is the Black community that have so much stereotypes and so much pressure on what a Black woman should be, how she should behave. She should have children and be the submissive wife and go to church and, all of that kind of stuff. So, like, how do you kind of balance all of that? Like, I just turn up, like, I'm just a Black man. I just turn up and I can behave. I can behave almost any way and get away with it, right? I don't have monthly biological pressures that, whether it's menstruation or, having children. There is
Perimenopausal. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
If you really think about it, the white female doesn't have that community pressure that I think Black women have. So that's why I like to say there's a triple jeopardy. And how do you guys kind of? It's amazing how you guys just balance all them things, man. Like, it's just seriously.
I'm gonna go off the block with that one because I'll tell you. And the reason why I'm gonna go first off the block is because it's such an important.
But Precious, it's not just that. The fact that you're also putting in the responsibility of leadership with all of that.
Absolutely. So I'll even speak in the premise of, I'll start with family first, because your community is your family, right? And we're black African, Black Caribbean. There's an expectation in the sense that even in your workplace. So everything that you do in your work, well, for me especially, everything that we do in your workplace will transcend into your home life in some shape or form. So you have to deal with also managing. Sorry to say, Romeo, the the egos of husbands and partners.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
if you're getting into a leadership role, you have for family members. Don't forget that you're the wife. When you're the wife, it doesn't matter. You're a wife you're a COO at work, or you're a boss at work. When you come home, you're the wife. Goodness me, like,
especially
you're like,
if you're earning more money than he is.
Correct. So there's the financial issue. There's the fact that you're a leader, you're in a leadership position at work, and you're having to deal with the pressures of work. And then you come back home, and inadvertently, you have to wear these different hats, and maybe take the coat off that you're in this leadership position at work, and then you come back into the house, and the community expectation is you, like you said, Romeo, submissive wife and all that. It's a difficult maze to navigate. Difficult maze to navigate. And you still have to have the role modeling that we talked about. So you either got younger sisters. I've got younger sisters, and they were like, oh my God, when we grow up, we want to be like you. We want to be in these leadership positions. And it's just that navigation all the time. And I'll tell you, when I turned 40, I'm not going to use any bad language. I think you grow in yourself to say, take it or leave it. This is me.
I know that's not what you said. I know that's not what you really said, right?
Exactly. I'm gonna be kind to the audience. That's exactly not what I said. And to the point where now I respect my mom's a widow. I respect her. But there are now red lines, boundaries that have been set, in the sense that now I'm comfortable to have those. Like, does it mean because I'm a business owner, it doesn't mean I'm not a great mom? No. It just simply means I'm taking one hat off, I'm putting another hat on. I'm in a leadership position in a different scenario. Take it or leave it. It's hard, but you get to a point where, and that's not to say just because I turned 40, suddenly it's switched off and I'm immune to it. No, it just simply means that I think there's a level of tolerance now that I can take with some of those things, and boundaries that I've now set around that to say, yeah, I live in a community, a Black community. Yes, I am a Black woman in a Black community. I am a leader, I own a business. That doesn't necessarily mean I am not doing my duties as a mom, as a partner, whatever. It just simply means I'm precious, I'm a leader, and I'm here to lead. Simple. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nneka.
Gosh.
Yeah, you know, I think it's interesting. I think it all comes back to knowing yourself. There's so many times that, you know, people say, "Oh, you're not yet married." Like what? Like I go back to Nigeria sometimes for holiday. It ends up being stressful. But you know, why aren't you married yet? It's like, well, you tell me why. Oh, maybe you're too assertive, or maybe there's this thing about you. And it's like, no, actually, because I know myself, the one thing I will never trade off, and I'm again really lucky that I have parents who genuinely love their children. They've built us to be confident in who we are. And you know, within the Black community, there's, oh, you're not Black enough, or you know, at the end of the day, you're never going to satisfy everyone. So the only person you can be true to, because this is the person you're going to wake up staring in the mirror at for however long, is yourself. You need to be happy with who you are,
Yeah.
whether it reflect, and it will reflect in your personal life, the decisions you make. And you might say, oh, okay, this auntie's saying this, or they're not the ones who's going to live with that partner, or make the decisions in terms of the roles you take on at work. You need to make sure, and this isn't coming at it from the sort of selfish narrative of just be yourself and do what you want. It's not about that. There's something around caring for others, but knowing yourself and what you want. And to your point, Precious, I think I find myself nowadays just saying, "Oh, I'm too old for that nonsense." Like, I just get to that point where everything, if it's at work, someone's annoying me, I'm just like,
at the grand age of 30.
yeah. Well, no, I'm about to be 35, and I just think, you know, come on, like, at what point am I actually just going to care about what's important to me? Like, I can't be listening to everyone, and that's why now I'm just like, whether it's work, whether it's personal life, I need to look back on my deathbed. Sorry to sound so morbid,
Oh my God.
but to me,
Not the deathbed.
no, but I need to look back and say, actually, I made the decisions I needed to make, not the decisions that other people. I don't believe in living a life full of regret. I really do not. And there are things I'll learn from situations. But I don't want to regret things. So for me, it's be clear on who you are, and it's a journey to find out who you are. But be clear on that, and then follow that rather than everyone else.
Boy, trust me. I mean, I am just the more I learn and the more I get involved in you know, in this space, it's like I'm just amazed at, you know, what Black women have to go through, like on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know, a daily basis. And I look back now, and I used to see my mom going through it, and it was just like, oh, that's just natural. Like, but now that I think about it, you know, take care of 5 children, well, 6 plus her husband, which was my father, which was a child.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, being a big sister, you know, being responsible for her mother, you know, going to school and teaching 3 different subjects, and also being mothering to those children in the school in the village in St. Mary, you know, and then coming home again, and then doing JCDC, teaching netball, then
Whoa.
Wow.
You know, and I can
no,
tell
I
you
can. If I can, so where I would start is kind of, you know, picky where what Nneka said, or where she ended, you know, and navigating all of that. For me, it's like, what is my ground zero? What is it that I come back to ground myself and to center myself? Because all the things will happen. I mean, is it Chinua Achebe? The things fall apart. What can the center hold? Or the center cannot hold. And my answer to that always has to be the center will hold. And so for me, what is the center? I'm a mom. I have 4 kids, 4 children. They're all under 8, right? 7 years old, 6 years old, 3 years old, 1. right? I'm a wife, an army wife at that, which comes with its own set of things.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But then, and I'm getting vulnerable here because, like, as I said, I own my leadership in any space. I try to, but now I'm separated, and there is the shame around that in the Black community as well, because
Oh yes.
traditionally we are family people and we must make it work. And if your marriage doesn't work, then oh my gosh, you have
Oh
failed.
yes.
Yeah.
And then, I am a leader within the higher education space and trying to own that amongst a lot of men and
Yeah.
a lot of loud and aggressive voices on different matters in the room. And then
Yes.
I am just, trying to navigate the political space. I'm a junior shadow cabinet spokesperson for education and training in the
Wow.
opposition. We're in the
Wow.
we're in the other
When
seat,
do you
you know what I
sleep?
mean?
Sorry, do
And
you
so
sleep?
Exactly.
I'm
trying
confused.
to, I know. And so
Is it the same
and
24
so for
hours?
me, there are a
Coffee.
lot of
Nneka,
things
right? Nneka is
going
asking
on.
for the
Yeah, you're
same
trying to,
24
and the thing
hours.
is, you're trying to be good at all of them because, like, you don't want to be a bad mom or a bad, like, friend or child or worker or whatever, because you're trying to do all the things well. So for me, it is two things coming back to what it is that grounds me, what
Hmm.
is center for me as a
Mm-hmm.
leader,
I like
Mm-hmm.
that.
and those are non-negotiables. So
Hmm.
my faith, for example, that's a
Yeah.
non-negotiable. My writing,
Yes.
my time that I get to just meditate, have the self-talk, the close circle of friends that you hope can be infiltrated. You have to decide as a leader what are those non-negotiable things that you're
Mm.
setting boundaries around, right?
Yes.
What is your center? Because the things will happen. That
Yes.
is one. And then secondly, for me, it just kind of floats on my head. But right, I'm coming to terms with the fact that balance, as I know it, Romeo, doesn't really exist. I feel like, so I always chuckle when I hear people talk about work-life balance, and I'm like,
Doesn't it? It's a myth.
work is like work. What is that? Because, like, work is a part of your life, or work is, like, whatever. And so
Yeah.
for me, I'm embracing what I know call. I don't have another term. Maybe when I think about it, or experience over years, but just the blending of the things.
Hmm.
So it's
Mm.
like, it's work life or just a life blend. So that
I
there
like that.
are
Life
days when
blend.
I come to
Yeah. Life
work
blend is good.
and my kids are walking in the door behind me. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, yeah, they're here. They'll be in the conference room.
Yeah.
And I try to keep them quiet, and I have their
Yeah.
activities, and I bounce from the conference room to my office. And then when I take a break, I take them for a walk outside. The campus is really huge, and I carry them around. And then, I just try to do that. And then there are other days when I wake up and I send them off to school, or and maybe I ask my mother to keep the baby for me, and I'm at home because I can't cross it today. I can't
Headspace.
Mm.
cross it. I can't make
Headspace.
it.
Yeah.
I'm at home, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna watch TV all day, and I am not answering my phone, and you're gonna take this silence from me. You know what I mean? And it's just all the things. And then the last thing I want to say is just that this, stop fighting with yourself when the day doesn't go the way that you want it to, and
Exactly.
things don't go the way that you want it to, and your leadership doesn't look the way that it should. And I'm coming to terms so much more with that. Like, the other day the teacher was like, Liam, my son, he came to school and he was out of uniform. And usually I would crack and start to panic and like, oh my goodness,
Hmm?
my motherhood is being called into question. And I messaged her and I was like, oh yeah, the shirts were on the line. I forgot to take them up. The rain wet them. I'm sorry, he's in a white shirt. I should have written you earlier. Bye.
Bye.
Done.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know what I
Rasheen, I'm
mean?
with you. I'm with you on that
Just
one.
like, so I'm working, trust me, it's a constant journeying. A lot of it to do with journeying to yourself, really, and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
understanding what your center is, what your non-negotiables are, and owning your leadership that
Yes.
way,
Yeah.
and the melting pot of your life, just really owning it.
I
Yeah.
love that.
That's
You know
yeah.
what? I think I need to get all of you in one room on a stage so people can just have conversation. I, but one of the
Yeah.
things though that I think that a lot of I now realize that a lot of black women are dealing with is
Mm.
especially in society more generally and the workplace is this whole issue of the isms, the
Mhm.
colorism, the racism, the
Oh.
objectivity of sexism,
Mm.
and all of that. I mean, none of you. You all just. We could not plan this better, to be honest. To have three women who are just so authentic in every single way, right? Nobody on the screen don't look like them bleaching,
Nope.
right?
No.
Nope.
Right? And nobody seems as if they have an issue hiding who they are, completely. I remember when I used to work in the airline industry years ago, they had the brown bag exercise. Have you ever heard of the brown bag exercise? Right.
No.
So,
Uh-uh.
so in Jamaica, they
Okay.
have this brown bag that they used to use to serve sugar or food,
Really?
or yeah, brown envelope that they have right now. Yes.
Brown
Yeah.
And
envelope.
and if they interviewed someone to be a flight attendant, and the woman didn't have
Mhm.
a color that was lighter than the
Oh
brown
my
paper bag,
Oh my
gosh. Are
she
you
goodness.
would
Oh,
not be
joking?
hired,
wow.
right?
Wow.
And so that's why, even so, here in the UK, when people
What?
invite me to a brown bag event, I'm like, no, I'm not coming.
Oh,
Like, you don't
You're
know,
You're making
triggered.
us
the
You
racism is
traumatized.
so,
yeah,
deep like
PTSD.
that, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
How do you guys deal with this whole pressure, in society and in the workplace, to conform around things like colorism? And then how you also deal with, I know Rasheen might not have the issue of racism in Jamaica, but
No,
for like Nneka,
colorism, but not really
Precious,
racism. Yeah.
yeah, Nneka and Precious, the whole issue of racism, especially, progressing in your role as leader, and being as leaders, and having to deal with men and white women, in the corporate world.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm
So
gonna tell you, say we're gonna turn over the whole apple cart today,
My gosh, like,
right?
yeah,
that
you're
that is
doing
a
the
slam
most
dunk.
right now.
That's a slam dunk question, Romeo.
Yeah.
I think you know what? I think okay, I'll talk on both fronts. So the racism issue.
Mm.
During my working career, there were I suppose two clear instances where I know a white male used his position as a white man in that particular role as a leader and as a senior person and as somebody that I reported to push me to a point where um, I was forced to challenge inadvertently a decision, right? And the only reason why that happened was I knew definitely it was because one, I was female, but two, also because I was a black woman. It's very, very hard, that conversation around racism in the workplace, because as we all know, there's structures in place in the workplace that support that whole narrative of racism, right?
Yeah.
And if you go against that grain in any shape or form, Nneka touched on it, you're too assertive, you're bossy. In fact, you're a problem. I was told I was a problem because
Wow.
I was challenging,
Yeah,
right, and
the angry
pushing
black
back.
woman syndrome.
Correct. And that angry black woman syndrome is not only just with white males, it's also with white females.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I remember an incident. So I'm talking about the white man, but I remember an incident with a white female. And I'll be very honest, actually, the white female angry black woman syndrome is far harder than a white man being racist to you, because now this is a sister to sister situation, not sisters to sister in the sense that I'm saying
Like
a
in
black
the right,
sister.
right, right. But
Oh, yeah.
You
you're both
understand?
females.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a simple incident. Somebody that was reporting to me, white female, did not meet the requirements of an activity that I'd asked them to do, went to ask this activity why in a reasonable manner, I believe, because I had people there. And what then happened was tears. And and
Hmm.
that is the default position normally. I hate to say it for a white female with a black woman. The tears start, the waterworks. And I remember this is a woman that was older than me as well, but she was in a role that was in an administrative role, so she supported some of the functions of my role. And I remember asking her in an open plan office, "Why are you crying?" I
Oh,
did. I asked, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "Well, because you've come and you didn't." She made a big issue out
the
of
whole
nothing.
thing.
And I said, just because you can put the waterworks on I can do exactly the same thing and we'll get nowhere, because your
Mm.
waterworks right now are a direct retaliation of the fact that I've pulled you up on something that you didn't do because you didn't want to follow my instruction. It was
She wanted you to give her the black funeral balling, right?
exactly, but the fact of the matter is, racism for me, I think, was more felt with white females, because there was another passive racism from the white females. No, we're together. No, we're not. No, we're not together, because my struggle is different from yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even that inadvertent racism of promotion. I remember going, looking pound for pound. I'll use the boxing term, pound for pound, on this particular promotion. Somebody who I knew they got it because they were white and they were blonde, and Precious was black and not blonde. So I did not get that particular. And I remember having a conversation with this lady at because we were friends many years after that, and it was a case of, I do recognize that. And then the waterworks came in. I feel like I should have done something. There's
Wow.
nothing you could have done. I said to her, there's
Yeah.
nothing you could have done in that situation other than refusing the promotion, which I know
The
you
Promotion.
post,
didn't.
right?
So there was nothing you could have done. The only thing you could have done is refuse the promotion and say, I do not deserve as Precious does, or I don't deserve it, Nneka does, or Rasheen does. But so there's nothing you could have done. So
Yeah.
when you talk about racism in the workplace and all that, oh, that's a minefield. Colorism, on the other hand. So I'm considered light skin in Southern Africa. I'm from Zimbabwe. You have terms like Fanta. I mean, I've been called Fanta. I've been called all sorts. Nneka, you're smiling because I'm sure it's a term that's even used in West Africa. Where somebody
Yeah.
is light, you're called a Fanta.
Mm.
And then it's almost like, oh no, just because you're light, you're pretty. No. Or if you
We
were
have
if you
that.
were
We
if you were
have that.
darker, you wouldn't be pretty. Wow. I mean, do you know what I mean? So you have the minefield of colorism, even woman to woman, black woman to black woman, and even black males to black women.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's this thing that, oh no, if you're light skinned, I don't know in Jamaica or in West Africa, but in Southern Africa, most of us are quite light anyways. So there's a lot of competition with that lightness. So the darker skinned girls are under pressure because there's a lot of light skinned girls. I don't know if that's the case in West Africa, but there's this thing that light is pretty. I'm
Yeah.
on the opposite end of the spectrum. Actually, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice, right? So, so I
Wow.
think black
I
is
am with you. I am with
black is
you.
beautiful, and that's not to say. I mean, we're all black, and we all have different shades. We should just be embracing.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
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 It's
Yeah. In
I went a
Jamaica, they
roundabout
call
way.
it browning. They call it browning when you're light skinned.
Yeah,
Oh
they
my
call it
God,
browning here in Jamaica.
really?
Wow.
I think quite a bit of it, perhaps, I mean, this conversation itself could be just a topic, a podcast episode,
Yeah.
Yes.
with several series or in its own. Some of the residual effects too of slavery, just this
Oh.
lighter black to darker
Yeah.
black
Yeah.
sort of. So in Jamaica, where you know our motto is out of many one, and so there are different races here. There are, but every day on the ground, as you move about this landscape that is Jamaica, you won't experience racism necessarily
Yeah.
on the
Hmm.
streets. Colorism for sure,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
because you comments like, "Boy, she pretty fair black girl," that sort of thing.
Mm.
Um, and it's in different spaces. So,
Yeah.
when you go to certain places, I talk about it all the time when you're going to supermarkets, how you will be trailed or treated because you're darker. I remember specifically going into a supermarket that I shop in a lot because of it's closer to work, which is uptown. And my child was, playing around with one of the items and it fell, the dishwashing liquid. And the guy that was sweeping the floor, I mean, created such a spectacle about my child damaging the things and so on. And I felt I knew that if I was couple shades lighter.
Mm.
And my child was also that he, and I'm not, there is no disrespect to the fact that he was mopping the floor. That is not even the point. But I know I have to say that because then my next statement is going to sound strange. But he was wiping the floor and was shouting at my child and me
He was
that we're
shopping.
mashing up the things and we're shopping. We're
Yeah.
shopping. And I know that were we a different hue,
Yeah.
that this statement would not be made. 3 security guards swarmed down on us. What's
Yeah.
happening? You
Oh
know,
my
that sort of thing. And
gosh.
I just felt so sad because I was now also, I don't know, caught between what was happening and I guess for the context of this conversation, caught between this reality and my leadership self.
Yeah.
You know, how do I respond in this moment? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and you know, I kind of chucked the leadership self and I went on. I told them, but I won't. That's not the point. That's really not the point. But the point is that so it happens, and sometimes you maybe even feel that you have to be trying to navigate between, you know, that self and the reality, the
Yes.
hurt and the color hurt, the racial hurt, this, the that. You know, but it certainly exists here in Jamaica. And then, you know, we take it a step further now where we have what is called a bleaching epidemic in our
Oh
country,
Yeah.
my goodness.
right? Where
Yeah.
persons are actively, whether it is by ingesting, you know, pills or whatever,
Yeah.
or rubbing the cream on the skin just to be lighter.
Yeah.
Yes.
And being feeling like in changing the color of the skin and being lighter, then their value and their worth increases.
Yes.
It's so
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, and so how do I navigate that? Really, it's a work in progress. I don't even know what to tell you as we sit
Mm.
here now.
Mm.
You know, I
Yeah.
don't even know. Because I feel like there's just never the right way to respond to this thing. Because even as I remember that supermarket scene, maybe there was a better way that I should have behaved, and I just didn't. I couldn't, you know, in that
Yeah.
point. Maybe
Yeah.
because my child was involved, but
Yeah.
what I'll say is that it's just this constant thing, the colorism and I guess racism that, you know, we have to navigate and trying to decide how to navigate that as a leader, as a
Mm-hmm.
female leader, will
Mm-hmm.
continue to just be really hard, deep work that,
Yes.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
have already solution to right now or formula.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you guys have said everything. The thing I will say is that it's important that people know that this is what they're stepping into. I think I don't enjoy going. I've experienced racism. Like one white female client, I just had to tell her, "You're racist." If the fact that I'm saying things, but I can't say it to you directly. I have to mute, tell my more
Mm.
junior colleague what to
Yeah.
say. Then you
Wow.
accept that
Yeah.
statement. There's something wrong with that situation.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
and
Yes.
and it's there, and you know, sometimes it's not directly in the workplace, it's the stuff you experience on the way to work. If someone
Yes.
shouts something at you, there's so many things. I
Yeah.
think we shouldn't have to spend the time justifying that it's there,
Mm.
but we should be very prepared. And I think that sometimes some people come into the workplace or life generally just under a state of illusion, whether it's because their
Mm.
parents haven't really confronted, or for various reasons, rightly so, maybe they want to protect them and say, actually, be open to the world and be open to experiences. But I think it's a bit of a shock if you haven't experienced explicit racism growing up and then you go
Yes.
into the real world,
Yeah.
and then you're
And
having, it's already hard enough to navigate it when you know it's going to be there, but then having to face it and not having the tools. It's like with anything in life, you
uh,
have to develop the tools to react. And like you said, Rasheen, it's not always a case of like the perfect reaction, but you do need to respond in a way that means that you're protected. And I think
yeah.
that sometimes people do a disservice to young people um, by shielding them a bit too much around that. So I think that that's really
Mm.
important. I think in
Mm.
terms of um, the sort of colorism, I haven't seen struggled with that as much in the workplace or just generally But yes, definitely in West Africa, it's a
Yeah.
theme. You know, I'm more on the light skin side, but the thing I think we haven't talked about, but I think it's not even class, because I think the construct of class is quite like British and colonial,
Yes.
but actually there is something, especially in the UK Black community, around how Black are you? Are you really, you know,
Oh, yes.
born and bred here,
Yes.
or etc.,
Yes.
etc.? So I think actually being in a space where the first mistake I made when I moved into university, I was like, oh, look, you know, there are other Black girls. I had no idea. They were just like, you're not Black. And I was thinking, what? No, I really am. and and I think that was a bit of a surprise as well. So I think that, you know, again, it's about
But what do
knowing
they
yourself.
mean by when they say you're not Black, Nneka?
It's
You're not
about,
Black
you know,
enough.
you went
You have
to
to
you
justify
went in a
yourself.
certain school, you speak
Yes.
a certain
Oh, okay.
way,
Way.
you haven't had the same fight we've had, and so on and so forth. And again, it comes back to know who you are. Like, except I can't change my history. I literally
Yeah.
can't. It's impossible. So I better get comfortable loving myself and just dealing with that. But I will say that my main point is like people need to be prepared, and
Yeah.
some of that preparation is through sharing the stories, through saying,
Yeah.
okay, this is my
Yeah.
experience dealing
Yeah.
with it, looking for
Yeah.
the support network. But yeah, just at the end of the day, again, my point earlier, not everyone will accept you. So
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to ask each of you to, to think about the future, to try and predict the future in terms of, if you are looking 10, 15 years down the line, what that would look like. And while you do that, I'm going to share with you the whole notion of around, the issue of racism, because I didn't migrate to the UK until I was 35. So I spent all my years of childhood and education in Jamaica. And
Jamaica.
so I had no concept of what racism was. And I remember starting here with a very prominent management consulting firm. And I just thought people were rude. So I was just telling them off. Yeah, I was just
You were
telling them off.
blind
I
to
remember,
it completely.
yeah, I remember one guy actually, slammed his office door in my face because, we were, and I wrote about this in my book. We
What?
actually shared an EA, right? And I needed something from her, and she was in his office, and I saw her, and the office door was open, so I just went and pushed my head in and said, so and so, can I borrow her for 5 minutes? I'm on a call and I need some information. And the guy got up and just slammed the door in my face.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I opened the door calmly and I went in and I closed it behind me. By this time, he's turning red because
Livid.
the
How dare
stereotype that he
you?
has,
Yeah.
yeah, the stereotype he has about, a nearly 6 foot Black man, which is quite muscular, is that I'm going to just fist him through that window on that 27th floor, right? And basically, I just looked at him and I'm like, I don't know about you, but I was brought up by my parents. I don't know if you were dragged up, but for
Oh
those
my
Dragged
of us
up.
who,
god.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for those of us who were brought up by our parents, let me remind you that the polite and correct thing, no, I said the manageable thing to do, and that's what we would say in Jamaica. The manageable thing to do is to say, Romeo, could you excuse me a minute? I need to be able to speak with Janet privately. And you close the door. I said, never slam that door in my face again or in anybody else's face. And then I said to Janet, I'm like, let's go. I need this information. And I let her out the office, right?
Oh
And
my gosh.
but it wasn't
Kudos.
until several months later I was actually in the lift. And the UK and MD was in the lift and said to me, oh, Fs, he couldn't miss me because I was one of very few Black senior leaders, right? And I said, yes. And he said, oh, we heard about that situation the other day. And we don't condone those racist things. And I'm like, racist? What's that? Like, for me, is I had no
You just
concept.
thought he was being rude.
I just thought it was being rude. And it wasn't until I
Wow.
left and I mentioned that to another friend. And that's when I started learning this whole. And then
Yeah.
I started looking at, I'm like, oh, so that was racist. Oh, so that was
So the
racist. So,
lens, the
Mm.
lens, the
so
lens
then
was
I just
opened.
started,
Mm.
you know. So
wow.
it's so funny to hear your perspective, Rasheen.
Yeah.
In the fact that we have no concept of what that is in a much.
Mm.
And so even when I go to West Africa as well, like they don't have no concept of what racism is. You know what I mean? They just know that, oh, white people don't like black people, and that's it, full stop. But they wouldn't understand the microaggression and the micro incivilities
Oh,
and those
come
things
to
that you
Zimbabwe.
constantly have to undergo, in the
Yeah.
workplace. Ladies, trust me, we could go on forever
I know.
with this
I've
podcast,
got
right?
kids to
And
see.
to be honest with you, I'm sure Candice is backstage just kind of saying, "You're running overtime. You're running overtime." It's probably one of the longest podcasts that we've ever recorded, right? Yeah, an
Wow.
hour and a half. So and we're definitely not gonna cut this down. But if you were to predict the future, what would that kind of look like for Black women? What are some of the things that you would like to see gotten rid of, embraced, accepted, all of that, both by Black women and by society more generally?
Well, I mean,
You make it
who's
sound
that?
like I ask you for predict when God coming.
Listen,
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I sighed, and I'm thankful that you switched up the verbiage of the question a little bit, because initially you asked us that you said to us that you wanted us to predict the future and what is it that we think will be in 10 to 15 years. I think initially it was, and then you kind of said, what would we like to see? Because I'm afraid that in 10 to 15, it's probably going to be quite a bit of the same. That's kind of how I feel, and that's sad. It's sad. Maybe there'll be a few more changes, but I feel like it will be a version of what we're currently experiencing. And if I were to, just not to be long-winded, if I could just summarize what I would like to see, I would love to see Black women operating from a place of ownership and I guess I would say being validated that they belong in these spaces. And what I mean is I would love to see Black women not constantly apologizing for their Blackness and womanness, right? I said to you before we came on air, that I had only had 2 cups of coffee today. And a part of why that was is because yesterday and there is no blatant aggression towards me in the space, but it's just this thing running in the back of your mind as a woman that you're on your P's and Q's, and kind of, I came extremely late to work yesterday, and I left before the end of the workday, 4:30. So I was really only at work for a few hours. And in the back of my mind, I had to compensate for that today, which meant that I was here way earlier than usual. And I'm probably not going to leave until later than usual, because in my mind, whoever is watching, I need to balance the hours back out. I can't be leaving 2 days in a row. And I promise you, my male counterparts do not have that mental struggle.
No, we don't.
They don't.
No, we don't.
We came late yesterday, and I'm here today. And if I
Come
have to
late
leave,
tomorrow, and we
you know what I
we
mean?
leave at lunchtime tomorrow.
And ideally, I would love us to operate from a space of equity. I would love us to be operating from a place where we can freely and unreservedly own our place in the different spaces that we're in, and not feel like we're constantly operating from a place of apology and guilt for who we are and where we have worked to be. If I could sum it up. Yeah.
Love that. Nneka?
Yeah, I think Rasheen said it just there. I sort of think 10 years is not a long time. I've been working for 12 years.
You're so right, because
so I guess the way I can look at it is to say, if I was starting again in 10 years' time, how would I want to feel? I'd want to feel
Mm.
that the world is an equitable place. I'd want to feel that it is meritocratic, truly, truly
Mm.
meritocratic, in the sense that
Mhm.
I can work hard, but I don't need to overcompensate. We said earlier, what's the one thing you would tell your younger self? For me, I overdid everything because I
Mm.
felt I had to. And
You
that's the
had to.
narrative
Yeah.
we've all been told: work twice as hard, work
Yes, yes.
even
Yeah.
harder to make sure that you can show that you're worthy. And I feel like
Yes.
Yeah.
that's something that the future generation starting their careers in 10 years time, I think it's important that they know, they start to know themselves, but they're given the space to do that, and they're given the opportunities to do that without having to deal with all the other things that come with the territory. Do I think we'll
Mhm.
get there where it's completely equitable? No, just being completely honest, there's so much
Mhm.
work that we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll make progress because, progress always looks glacial, and then when you look back, there has been more
True.
change. But
Yeah.
I think it's that bit to give people the space, Black women, the space to have an equal chance. Like we shouldn't have to be doing all the extras. We just
Yeah.
shouldn't. It's not fair,
Yeah.
and it takes its toll. So that for me is like what an ideal situation would be.
Mm.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mm. Wow. So I'm just taking the excellent points that you've both stated, and for me, what summarizes is Superwoman. I'd like in
Mhm.
10 to 15 years' time, I like when you said feel, what do I want to feel like? I wanted to feel like we're not expected to be superwomen because,
Mm.
there's that superwoman syndrome, which I think
Syndrome.
yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
which we've all gone through. We've gone through in terms of, like you said, Nneka, having to work twice as hard. That's in the workspace element. Rasheen and I are both moms, so I've got two children. Superwoman at work, in the community, in family, etc., etc. Being pulled pillar to post. I'd like to feel like if I drop a ball, it's not going to be an issue more than it actually is, where you
Yeah.
have to keep running the rat race even when you get home, just
Right.
continuously. Do you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
for me,
Mhm.
in 10, 15 years time, yes, we will. I don't think equity is so much further. Gender has only just started happening, and we've been talking
Mm-hmm.
about it
Mm-hmm.
for a very, very long time. But what I would like is for us not to feel like we need to be superwomen,
Yeah.
and to
Oh my
just,
God.
have that support.
Mhm.
Like seriously, this was amazing. Like, yeah, yeah. Shell, as they would say, right?
Yeah.
Ladies, like I don't think I could ask for a much better panel. And you know what? The universe just has a way of just kind of, bringing the right group of individuals together. Because I remember when Candice and I were talking about Black History Month, and the whole notion was, she was like, Candice has a way of always coming up with these revolutionary bold topics. She's like, let's just talk to some women, some Black women about leadership, blah blah blah. And straight away I knew one person that I needed to be on this podcast was Nneka, because I know that Nneka is on it, when it comes down to this. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Nneka is, she don't tell you that she's one of them out in the front that has the placard, like,
She's that girl.
On the picket lines. Oh.
yes, on the picket lines,
The
man, like,
activist.
Rosa Park and Nanny the
Well,
balloon.
wow, no, that's not even near them. Yeah.
you know and
Brilliant.
and based on what Candice tells me, Rasheen, you are just like kicking it, like just so authentic in being
Thank
yourself
you.
and just
Yeah.
showing up, which is a super great. And
You.
Precious is, I know Precious is someone who is just like, in Jamaica we have this saying that says, down the road may I go. That means I'm going down the road and no one is
Yeah.
going to get in my way. That's a
Yeah.
Precious for you, right?
Nice.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
as I said, it's the longest podcast we've ever recorded, and
Wow.
it's going to be amazing how we really promote this
Mm.
for Black History Month, because I think it's really really needed. And for me, I have a daughter, and I'd really love, in when she is at the age to kind of enter the place of work and all of that, you know you guys would have kind of, you know,
Paved the way.
created another step,
Yeah.
you know, that she could actually sit on, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that she doesn't have to be in the trenches, because you have kind of built a step out of those trenches, and she can just land on that, and she
Yes.
can build on top of that and build on top of that. So that is how I see what you guys are doing, you know, in the world right now. You are just kind of building, whether or not you want to call it a shade tree, an umbrella, or a step, or whatever
Or
it
a
is,
step.
you know, you are
Yeah.
creating that space for other Black women to come in and to have it much easier, you know, in the same way that those that have gone before you have kind of created the space so that you can enjoy what you're doing right now. God of grace, I'm so happy we had this conversation. Love you
Brilliant.
guys both.
No,
Love
thank
so
you,
much.
Romeo, and thank you for setting this up, because at the end of the day, it's also about platforms that we have. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, you didn't have to do
Yeah.
this at all. So thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Agreed.
But
I
you know,
agree.
I mean, one of my and those that work for me, they can tell you that my bias is hiring women. And I think that came from the fact that I was raised by two women, my mother and my grandmother.
Yes.
And I just believe that if you want anything done, just give it to a woman. She'll just get it like
That's it.
done completely, you
Slam
know. So
dunk.
yeah. Folks,
Lovely
you know,
to meet you,
let
Nneka
me sign
Rasheen.
off from now
Yeah,
before
You
somebody
guys.
kills me, right? Folks, that's all we have for today's podcast on Leadership Melting Pot. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks again for joining us today. And as usual, you know, your thoughts and comments, you know, are welcome. So, you know, drop them in the chat below. We'll provide some tools and some links in the comment section as well. So, you know, until next time, you know, thanks to my guest, Nneka and Rasheen, and my amazing host, which you'll hear a lot more of on podcast, on the Leadership Melting Pot podcast, Precious.
Yeah.
You know, you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Medium at Lumerous PLC. So please subscribe and get involved in the conversation and share this, because I think there's so many good lessons that can be learned out of this. And yeah, would you also like to, you know, say a big thank you to Candice and Adam, who are working in the background to make this happen. They have been
Thank you.
super amazing. Guys,
Thanks, guys.
thank you guys so much, and see you again next time.
Cheers, Romeo.
Bye, guys.
Brilliant.
Bye.
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 Thank you for joining us. You can also reach us and find out more about us via our website, lumerous.com.